This message is for anybody in the dating world. Specifically, it's for people who are struggling with the dating world. These are the 2 key practices that if you can develop, you will be immortal. Will be untouchable, unfazed in the dating world. Not only will you also be untouched and unfazed, but you'll actually process what's happening in a much healthier way. And if you practice these things, you won't get into these situations that often. This is a concept that I'm working on. It's actually more of a practice than anything, and I've kind of developed it after watching, I don't know, probably like 10 seasons of Love Island. The first is self-love. Developing a very, very strong sense of self-love. The second is something we should all be doing more often, just in general, learning how to grieve. Grief, isn't that only for when people pass away? No, see, one of the most important things I learned in therapy was that we can grieve so many different things. You can grieve an idea that you thought was going to come to fruition. You can grieve a goal that you wanted to achieve at a certain point. You can grieve a friend who leaves your space because you guys don't see eye to eye anymore. So let's talk about how these 2 things come into play when it comes into dating. So first off, you need to have a very strong sense of self-love, because if you don't have a strong sense of self-love, you're going to let people do bad things to you. You're going to let them manipulate you, take advantage of you, not respect you. And first off, if you don't have self-love, please do not feel bad about that. Don't put yourself down because you don't have self-love. It's something that needs to be learned and often is not taught. So the reason self-love is so important is when you go into the dating world, it's going to pretty much protect you. It's going to be a bubble. As soon as someone does something wrong, you're going to realize that. And if that person is not willing to change, right, because you're going to confront them and say, well, I love myself and what you just did kind of goes against my morals, so I wanted to bring this to your attention. Will you change that? And if they really, truly make an effort to change that, then I think that's a person worth staying with. If they clearly don't, then after that, it's like fool me once, shame on me, or whatever, right? This is where grief comes into play. We need to be prepared and know how to properly grieve these relationships, these situations, so we can move on and so we can then open up again in the future. And this is the huge key that I think many people miss. Even if you have the most self-love, you might fully invest yourself into a person who still does something unfavorable towards you. And if that's the case, that's not a fault of no self-love, right? Because you loved yourself, you just opened up into that relationship, and you needed to open up because you need to open up in any relationship to make a relationship, right? Even if you thought everything was great, even if you had the most self-love possible. So grief is the next stage here. Because we are not taught how to grieve, we do not know how to process bad emotions. We do not know how to process sadness. We do not know how to process anger. We do not know how to process betrayal. These words might not hit just yet, but watch this video again and let it kind of simmer and you'll see what I mean. We do not know how to process just missing something or, something leaving forever. I learned grief through one of my best friends passing away at a really young age in a freak accident. And I will tell you that it was one of the most healthiest things I have ever done, and probably one of the best things I did for that experience. I allowed myself to feel the grief. I gave myself space and time to grieve. And furthermore, after that therapy session, I've done a lot of grieving for other things in my life. Careers that I thought I wanted to have, or relationships that I thought I wanted to have, or just bad things that have happened to me, people betraying me in ways that I would have never expected. So holding space for that grief and not letting it dig too deep. Again, there's ways on how to do this, but right now this is just the what. So let me know if that resonated with you today.